Hi, Mike.
Hi, Caroline. Who are we speaking to today?
Today we're talking to Mary Kate Melnick. She is the head of licensing at ATO Records and the founder of Odd Man Out Publishing, and she's worked in all kinds of different spaces in the music industry. She's a huge music fan and a big lover of the arts, and she has a lot of great insight. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, this was an interesting conversation because we don't get to talk to a lot of people who are like behind the scenes, but she's created a lot of moments that everybody knows. That Black Puma's colors sync with the Bank of America commercial. I think if you Google that, it's like millions and millions of streams. So many moments that you probably know. This was a really cool conversation.
Yeah, and we got to learn a little bit about the technical side, like what it actually is that's going on that side of the industry, and what it really looks like for artists, and how money works over there a little bit. And then, of course, we get a little heady because that's what we do here.
That is what we do. So here's that conversation.
Okay. I think actually we should start this one out by just telling the folks a little bit about your experience and what you do.
Well, this is already so hard. I have a long music business I have a lot of music business experience. I think I started out in a completely different field than I'm in now, which is sync licensing. I started my career in publicity at Blue Note Records in 2004. And then after that, I worked at Caroline Distribution, selling CDs to record stores back when we still did that. And I think that along the way, I kind of had this feeling of like, I'm not very good at publicity. I don't know what I'm doing selling CDs to record stores because I'm also not very good at this. And B, it felt at the time like very bleak. And around that time, I met somebody through a friend who did sync licensing, which I didn't even realize was a job. And I was like, ooh, that sounds interesting to me. And I, through a series of serendipitous events, kind of found myself in a position where I could explore that. And since then, I've worked at third-party licensing companies, which are basically licensing companies that work on behalf of people who don't have record labels or don't have publishing deals, or maybe it's a record label that doesn't have an in-house sync person. So I worked at a company that did that. And then after that, I worked at a publisher called Big Deal, which is now owned by Hypnosis. And then now I'm at ATO Records on the label side. So I've completed the licensing trifecta of things that you can do. People you can work on behind.
Yes. You know it all. You've seen from multiple perspectives what that side looks like. And honestly, that whole thing is mysterious to a lot of people.
Yes, for sure.
So and it's also where a lot of money changes hands. So
yes, I feel like we have to like back all the way up. It's almost like science class or something where you have to like talk about the terms that we're talking about, like what is sync licensing, so that we have like a baseline of understanding, because a lot of people don't know what that even means, like including me.
Right. We're already starting in the I think like the biggest problem that people have with sync licensing is they just are like it has its own terminology, it's its own weird little world that's existing like parallel to the music industry, but is in it but not in it, but in other things as well. And then I think that people have this idea of how it works that is logical but wrong.
Help us.
I'm here to help you. I remember feeling this way. I have a lot of empathy, I feel like, for all of the people that I work with, because I remember coming into it and being like, this is how it is. And then I was like, uh-oh, no, it's not. I'm wrong. So let's back all the way up.
Yeah.
Sync licensing is basically the licensing of music, both a recording and a written song. So in licensing world, and the music business, actually, not just licensing world, but we refer to the recorded song as the master, and then the written song is the publishing. And those two things, anytime you are marrying a song with a piece of media, is a sync license. So a piece of media meaning a video game, a movie, an ad, a social media, anything that you can put music to, that's where the sync licensing lives. And so all of those different bits come together and do that.
Gotcha. That's really fascinating. So, but you mentioned like you started your career at Blue Note doing something different.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you always want to be a part of the music industry, and was this like the way for you to participate, or were you an aspiring musician? Like, how did you get involved in music to begin with?
I'm a lifelong fan. I have no musical talent. I just have always been somebody that loves records. I feel like my generation, I guess like an elder millennial, really grew up really fascinated with label culture and different like musical communities that you would follow and become fans of. And I was just so passionate about music that I thought, what better way to spend your day, spend your life, dedicate your life to working with recordings, with music. So
right.
But yeah, no talent.
That's cool though, because I mean, a lot of our listeners are people that, want to be involved in the music industry in some way. And, you got to be a part of it and like through the back end in a way, like doing the stuff behind the scenes. And so like, how did you decide to enter the music industry, and like, what did you go to school for? And like, tell us a little bit about your background.
I went to school in Boston at Emerson. And I started out as a film major, but I feel like my life's journey is doing things and then being like, I am not good at this. And being honest with myself.
Knowing you though, I'm sorry, I just find that really hard to believe that you're genuinely not good at stuff. Maybe you just didn't like it.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But there was just like something inside of me where I was like, my brain is like absolutely not to this. And so I think that when I was at school is when I had always been like a music fan as a teenager. And I can't believe it took me until I was like almost 30 years old to figure out that the job that I do is a job that people can do, because how I found out about music and what was sort of like my gateway to loving it is movie soundtracks.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any favorites?
My point of entry into this world was the Trainspotting soundtrack. I was
Classic.
just like obsessed with it as a 15-year-old.
Britpop.
Yeah. Yes. And then I would just like, there was barely internet at the time. And so there was no one to talk to about it. There was just like nothing. And so I would collect these soundtracks, and I'd find the bands, and then I would buy all of their like catalogs, and then I would sometimes have to like special order them with my babysitting money. And yeah, and that was kind of like how I got into that stuff, which at the time it was sort of lame, but now I'm like, oh, that was like kind of cool.
Very cool.
But it was not cool back then. And then when I went to school, I met a lot of other people that were interested in the same kinds of music that I was, which I just never, there were no kids at school that could talk about this. So
I felt the same way.
yeah, exactly. And then you just meet other people and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting to talk to another person about this. I've just been just me this whole time. And then I don't know, I just was so into it. I wanted to work in music somehow, but I didn't really know how. And I understand that, or it's my understanding that Emerson has a music business program now, but back then they did not. So my guidance counselor suggested I take an marketing class or do like a marketing minor with an audio engineering major, which I was not good at that.
That's cool that you know about it, though.
Yeah, it helped me get my very first job out of school, which was at a recording studio in New York City. But I was just the tape librarian. Thankfully, I did not have to actually engineer anything. Because
That sounds like a cool job, though, too. Tape librarian. That's a cool title, at least.
yes, we were recording things on DAT tape.
Hell yeah.
It's like what's so fascinating and frightening about the music business, I feel like, is the way that things become outdated so quickly that you're just like, not, 25 years ago or whatever, less than that, we're like CDs, I gotta collect them all, and
Right.
we're recording things on tape, and
Yeah.
now
No, everyone has access to the Trainspotting soundtrack.
everyone can go and enjoy.
Yeah.
And then they don't have to special order like import albums from Media Play with their babysitting. They can just stream it, I guess.
Yeah.
I think getting into the music industry, that story is kind of common, I guess. Just because when you're in school, at least when we were in that age of finding things out like that, there's no one to lay it out for you. Like, this is what this kind of music company works, and here are all the people that work there, and here's a different kind of company in the music industry, and here are all the people that work there, and this is what they all do. Because maybe it is because it's kind of amorphous and every company works differently, and all the titles and labels of the jobs are different for every group that works together.
Yeah, and I feel like everybody's job is always kind of changing and then there's like new jobs that come up where it's kind of like, now it's, we need somebody to do social media and figure out what that is. And it's become more, whereas before it seemed like, not as important of a job, maybe now it's like so important. And every day at work, we talk about like, what will we do on social media?
I have to make TikToks at work. I'm like, Jesus, I'm too old for this, but someone's got to do it.
We're like, please make them. Do you want to make them for us? You want to make them for these people over here? We've got like 80 TikToks that you
I had to like learn CapCut. I'm like, yeah, I know how to do that.
It's the future.
Yeah. Has your job changed since you got it, do you feel?
I feel there's always like little things that I feel like there'll be like new things that come up that we're licensing, or new media that's coming up that we're licensing for, like TikTok, and everyone's like, well, what do we quote on that? And then, or like virtual reality media stuff that you watch exclusively on these glasses, and then we're like, we're all sitting around being like, well, what is that? And I have a network of people. Somebody somewhere makes up the number, and then we all have a network of people who are like, what are you saying? What are you saying? So it changes in the sense that there's always something new to license for. But nothing super major, I think, that's changed the fundamentals of what we're doing. There's like small things that are so in the weeds that explaining it is not interesting.
Well, let's back up for just 1 second. So describe your role and what you do day to day, just so that people understand kind of what it is that you do.
Oh yeah. Well, here's what I do. I take at ATO, which is a record label. I take all of the songs that are in our catalog, and I try to find homes for them in different media. So I'm constantly talking to supervisors, both proactively and reactively, in terms of what they're working on, or what I have that might make sense, or what they're working on, or what I have that they might be fans of. It's just sort of like me acting on behalf of the masters on our label.
Right.
In sort of, I'm like a liaison to these folks.
And so the supervisors that you're talking to, where do they work? What are they working on? Like, give us the whole picture.
They work everywhere, and it's sort of like weird to, like, I'm working on behalf of the label, maybe the publisher, maybe a third party. I'm working on behalf of the music, right? Mm-hmm. And the supervisors are working at various companies. Most of them, a lot of them, not most of them, but like a good sizable number of them are freelance. And so, and they have their own companies that are then hired by larger companies. This is so...
No, this
tell
is great.
me if it's getting too, like, what?
No, this is perfect.
we can do an accompanying chart, that flow chart.
I would love that.
And so they're working on behalf of these media companies that have nothing to do with music for the most part. And so their job really is to help these folks over here that are making TV shows, ads, video games, and sort of help them license and find music that they want to put in. And they're not music people.
Right.
So we're speaking a language to each other. We're like translators on behalf of these two groups, where they're sort of like, these people are saying this thing, but what that means is this to you. And I'm saying, we have this thing, and this is what it means over here.
So are these companies like hiring like these freelancers that work for these larger corporations that are putting a TV show together? Are they hiring someone that's like super cool that they trust to their music taste so much that they're going to put their choice into their TV show? Is that essentially what's happening?
I think that sort of. Sometimes it's relationship based. It's a little, as a person who's never had that lived experience, it's a little hard to speak on, but like, supervisors, a lot of them will have showrunners or relationships with people over here that they have worked with throughout their careers. And sometimes it'll be the first job that they've ever been hired on. Sometimes it's in-house people, so there's no one hired. But it's their whole like relationship journey where they're trying to, build their resume of great stuff that they've worked on. So they're supervisors who maybe not we all, but like in the world, in the microcosm of sync, people think of as being having great taste, or have like really built these reputations of being, purveyors of good music and helping you find things that maybe no one's ever heard of before. But a lot of a music supervisor's job is also just to like get the song cleared and get it done. There's a whole
the paperwork completed and all that.
Yeah, there's like a whole boring aspect of it. We're just doing paperwork.
Yeah.
And so
Well, it can't all be fun.
Right.
it can't. And a lot of the times the supervisor is working closely with a director or a brand or somebody, and the brand is saying like, I want this song. And that's the song they go out and try to get. There isn't as much creative flow. I think sometimes people think that there's kind of like, I bestow this, upon you, and I have chosen you to be in this film. And sometimes it's a little less. They don't get to be as creative, I think, as much as we think that they get to be creative.
That's interesting. That's really cool, though. That's a great description of it. I mean, I wonder when something comes across your desk, like there's a new project. How often do you go pitch a song from the ATO catalog versus how often do they want a specific song from your catalog?
I would say I'm pitching quite a bit. I don't know. I would say maybe 80% pitching, 20% they're just like, I want this one.
Wow. That's cool. So like when you have to pitch something, describe that process to us, because this is something very new.
Well, for every like 500 pitches I do, maybe one thing will like trickle back to me, which is why it kind of feels like I'm doing so much more pitching. The supervisors are also doing their own internal searching, and not a lot of the times they're like, we don't need her opinion.
They don't know what they're missing.
Yeah, they're like, I got this. So I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so like when you have to pitch a song, is it a song that you're super passionate about, or is it a song that like fits the vibe of whatever the project is? And then how do you go about pitching it? And
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So usually what will happen if I call it like a reactive pitch, which means that they've sent out a brief. We sometimes call it a search. We actually mostly call it a search, but sometimes I think brief makes more sense to people. And so in the search, they'll outline exactly what they're working on. Sometimes they'll tell you what the show's about. They'll give you an idea of what their budget is, which is really helpful when determining what you're going to send them. And they'll describe to you kind of what they're looking for. So they'll say like, we need something in this genre with lyrics about this, and we want it to be from this era sometimes, or we want it to be male vocals, or it's important to us that like these certain criteria are met. And I send ideas that I think, and then I'm just kind of like, okay, here I go. And now it now becomes like very subjective in the sense that they're trying to describe what music to me, and I'm trying to interpret it. And then I put together like a little playlist for them of what I think makes sense. Sometimes I'll throw in a wild card where I'm like, this fits like 2 out of the 3 boxes. This checks, but maybe it's a little outside of that. And sometimes those are the things that people really gravitate towards. But it's pretty, important that you send them what they ask for, because that's sort of they're reaching out to me, but they're probably also reaching out to 30 other people, which means if I send them 10 songs, all these other people are sending, they have to sift through all that stuff. It's a big time suck if you're kind of just being like, I think I know better than you. Here's what I think. And so I think there's always kind of like creative space where you can play, but it's really important that you make sure that you're prioritizing their needs and being a good partner to them.
And people come to you, those folks come to you because they know that more than likely the paperwork situation will be simple because you already have all that. You're representing all these artists, and that part will be relatively painless. but people do that independently still. Correct?
Yes. I think I understand the question. Yes, a big part of my job is also not sending things that people can't clear. The times that I have gotten into hot water have been times where it's never been like so terrible, but like times when people have gotten irritated with me is when I send something and it's like, oh, this won't clear because of some reason that I'm, I don't know. Maybe the publisher was like, no. Or maybe somebody forgot to tell me about a sample that's in the song, and then we're like, oh, sorry, you can't use that.
Oh, I see.
And so
that's complicated.
Yeah, it is. So we always try to know what's going on with the song from top to bottom on the front end, in terms of just like, even though in my current position, I don't work on behalf of the publishing at ATO, I always like to know who has the publishing, because that can determine what's going to make sense with certain budgets, or if it's a cover, there's just all kinds of elements that you have to kind of keep track of, so you're not sending people stuff that they can't use and then they're falling in love with it and taking it to the director or whatever, and the director's like, I want it, and then they come back to me and I'm like, you can't have it, and then now they're like, I have to tell my boss I can't have this. That's really annoying. Can
you tell us a little bit about like some really awesome syncs that you've gotten published for ATO?
Sure. I think the ones that sorry, there's so many of them that in my brain I'm like blah, 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 blah. I'm trying to like remember the
humble
ones
brag.
Yeah,
there's so many.
I hope your boss is listening to this.
There are so many things that I've got. I can't even remember all of them. No. But also it's been like many, many years. So like trying to something about this job and something about all music industry jobs is, I feel like once you get one thing, people are like, okay, now what? What more can you do? And so
totally,
you are very much. It's not that you're very much living in this stressed out feeling of I need to bring more in, and so whatever little dopamine hit you got from whatever it was is like out the window. You're like, forget that. I'm on this little hamster wheel.
Yeah. At 30 Tigers, we won like 5 Grammys or something last year.
Wow.
And no one even mentioned it. We just went about our day. I was like, no cookies,
wow.
Nothing. But that's just, I think
you
they
need
won
to
like,
get 6.
Yeah.
That's Scrooge-like, I would say.
That's just the industry, you got to keep going. There's always the next thing to do, and then there'll be something after that. But I think it's important to celebrate.
It is. Some that I was really excited about. I really love the first Black Puma's colors use in this Bank of America ad from 2019. It was my first big sync at ATO, and I think leading up to it, they were like, we think we want to use a different song, so we're probably not gonna do this. And I was like, okay. And so when they ended up using that song, and then since then many people have used it, it just felt like a big win after pitching and that was my first year at the company too, which is always the hardest year when you're building a sync department, because you're having to tell everybody that you exist and they're like, wait, what? And so that one I really like. I did an Amyl and the Sniffers one in an Apple ad a few years ago. Which was, it was actually pitched by a girl that worked in my department, and it's a great story and how it's so subjective when you read these briefs, because when I read the brief, I was kind of like, that one, I don't know, that one clicks some of the boxes, but not all of them. And she felt like it was a good idea. So, I always, unless there's some budget thing that's going to make it unclearable, I'm like, well, put it in. And it was really cool to see that one go all the way. And I think it was, I was really proud of that moment and proud of her. And also, like, I felt like it was a teachable moment for me, where I was kind of like, oh yeah, there's great ideas it takes a village.
And those situations can really make a big difference in the trajectory of a band's growth.
Yeah.
As far as like financially, obviously, which is a struggle for every band, I would say. But also, leveling up their listeners, hopefully getting those Shazams.
Yeah. I feel like these days television and film almost have a greater impact than advertising. I spent the first part of my career doing mostly advertising, so I feel like my brain is predisposed to think about that. But some of the biggest impact that the Syncs have had in recent years, I feel like, have been in TV shows. Like, we had a Jim James song from his first solo record, I think, in this most recent season of True Detective, the one with Jodie Foster. And people just really connected with it. And when I see the clearance on my end, when the clearance comes through, I can't really, I'm only seeing a sliver of it. So I'm like, that's neat. I thought, I like that show. That's cool. But I can't tell if people are going to connect with it until it actually is on and people can see it. And I can see it. I don't know what it looks like most of the time either. But it's so cool to see those things connect. And I think I'm seeing TV and film just have so much more of an impact in terms of discovery than ads, where they like come up on YouTube and then it's like skip, and I'm like, absolutely. I gotta get to my video about whatever it is I'm trying to learn about.
Yeah, I think soundtracks are like very impactful, and I buy those on vinyl often.
Me too.
And I'm glad that's staying popular. People, actually making the physical product, because I buy that stuff. As a DJ, you gotta have soundtracks in your case, because you get so much on one, and it's the same vibe usually. If you like part of it, you probably like all of it. It's good.
Yeah. I like how syncs also can be music from any era, and it doesn't feel like it's contained to like what's new. And it's cool to see things get like a second or third life.
Definitely. Like the Baby Driver soundtrack. I don't know if y'all have seen that movie or heard that soundtrack, but it's a great mixture of old and new things, and that's one that I pull out very often.
That's cool. That's a sync for this podcast.
Yeah.
No idea. I've never heard of that.
Baby Driver?
Yeah.
It's about a baby that
Right. Yeah, that's what I was picturing in my head. Like, look who's talking car version.
Yeah, it's like he chauffeurs.
You're like,
Driving
what's
this baby.
Baby.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask about the importance of the sync department in the label business, because I would imagine that as sales have dwindled for physical media, that syncing has become more and more important. And I, correct me if I'm wrong about that, but
it definitely feels like a department that much like we were talking about earlier with social media. I feel like there was a point in time where people are like, that's just over there. And now it feels more of an integral part of the overall business because of the nature of the way sync works. In terms of like stuff that I do in the sync department, lining up with what my coworkers are doing in radio, in press, all these other areas that are more promotional. Like I'm just kind of like, well, maybe something will happen in the album cycle. We'll see if something we have makes any sense we're not really in control of that. But I think so on a micro level, in terms of an album campaign, we're always trying as hard as we can to go and get as many syncs around a release, as possible. But, things happen where, the songs don't make any sense, or people are on strike, so we're not making anything, or just various things. And so a lot of the time it feels like the syncs sometimes happen in their own separate space. So on a macro level, I'm just like manhandling this microphone. On a macro level, I think more important to the business than it used to be. On a micro level, I feel like I'm just trying to keep up with what everyone's doing in terms of planting seeds, then hopefully my flowers are growing when it makes the most sense for everybody.
I think that's great that it doesn't have to be something new all the time, brand new, because I think we kind of got poisoned into thinking that songs were only valuable right when they came out. Mm-hmm. And to be a professional musician, that was like a big part of it. You had to stay relevant, quote unquote, and keep putting new music out. Otherwise you would die. And I think we're kind of getting away from that now, hopefully.
Yeah, or I mean, what was that thing with Spotify that came out a few years ago where they were like, you have to just keep putting new things on it. You have to, as if like it's just so easy to and affordable to just make. I mean, we're just making these things, right? And
2 a year. Just put out 2 albums a year. What's the big deal?
Yeah, and so like, you get tricked into playing this game of newness, right? So we have to keep our listeners up, or our followers, or it's all this like weird, they want you to think it's like a meritocracy, but it's not. It's like people playing a weird numbers game that has nothing to do with art.
Mm-hmm. And movies are the same way. I mean, you don't watch a movie only when it's new.
It's true.
And I'll watch Baby Driver tonight. Years later.
There's some questionable actors in it, but the soundtrack is 10 of 10. I mean, I have kind of a heady question.
Okay.
A bit. If we want to, that's where we go. We
need a sound effect for that.
It's like brain expansion sound. Yeah. If we feel happy with the technical like things that we've gotten through, I feel like I've got a really good grasp now.
Okay.
So thank you for that.
Oh well, yeah, I'm doing my best. I'm not.
You're doing so good.
I think I'm doing okay.
You're doing amazing.
I'm curious if you think, like, do you hear music and think that was written for sync? Like they wrote that so someone like me would put them in a movie.
Well, that opens up a whole new space in this in the world of sync, which is that is a thing that people do, and that's a whole area of the business that I have never personally worked in, so I don't have working knowledge of it. But there, a lot of publishers do things like sync writing camps, and the whole idea is to write music that take the writers, put them all together, rent out some studios, and make some songs that are more appealing to the film and TV world.
Never heard of this.
Never heard of this, really?
No.
It's like a major part of the business.
Wow.
And there are people.
Tell us more.
Yeah, there are people I've heard. I've never worked in it personally. There are people that are just destroying it financially, just like doing very well, supposedly.
Wow.
From what I've heard, by just sort of like reverse engineering music to be more syncable. And, you know, it's one of those things where sometimes it has a little stink on it where it'll be like, you know, you'll see a search and it'll be like, don't send us any music that's made for sync. But then
Wow.
they'll use it sometimes. So, you know, whatever, if you're good at it, then maybe people can't tell. But there's definitely, I mean, we've all been watching television and you hear a song and you're like, there's no way
Yeah.
that
Very
somebody
on the
wrote.
nose.
Yeah, President's
All-
Day sale.
All of the Yellowstone
That banger.
soundtrack that I've heard,
Yeah.
it's just all wow. Like,
Oh man, no.
you know what I mean?
That's a lot of the artists we work with, to be honest. And I am like,
I'm sorry, I'll take that back.
no, it's okay.
We have to cut this out.
Oh my god, I'm gonna get fired for my podcast. No, but it's very like, I know exactly what they're looking for,
Yeah.
and they have found a stockpile of it, I guess, in our catalog.
Yeah.
So
I think that's what the soundtrack to Yellowstone is called, Stockpile.
yeah, it's just it's very specific.
Yeah, that's
That's
funny.
exactly what they want. I can tell you they don't want anything in my catalog.
That's probably true.
The space
But-
between
Yeah.
Kevin Costner. You know what I mean? That sounds beautiful to me.
Aw. Yeah, so that's a whole thing that people do, and some people are very successful with it. They make good livings that way. And you know, some people are like, don't do it, and other people are like, do it. And I have no opinion on it.
That brings me to like the obvious question, I think. So like now there's like sync writing camps where people are trying to reverse engineer, like you say.
Mm-hmm.
But like when you were listening to Train Spotting, all those bands were like, don't ever fucking use our
Yeah.
music in commercials. We will never sell out, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the money from CDs like disappeared, they were all like, please, Bank of America, please use our music.
Please.
We will like, you know, do
We'll write a
whatever it
song
takes. Yeah.
just for that.
Bum,
If that's
bum,
what.
bum, Bank of America. Like
Yeah.
they'll do exactly that.
It definitely, it's been very interesting over the course of, I guess, like almost 15 years now, watching people go from, not, and some people, some bands and artists still have like no zones. Like there's still some folks where they will turn stuff down purely for the, we don't want our music used by this company.
Just are they usually very, very rich?
No, not even necessarily.
Okay.
Some people have
Like-
moral,
Wow.
like boundaries,
Okay.
and and I won't say who they are, but and sometimes like interesting things will come up where sometimes it'll be something like the band will be vegan and they won't want a song that they wrote about not eating animals being used in a scene at, like, so let's say a sushi restaurant or something. And that'll be a surprise for everybody, but then we'll learn something new about what they don't want to do and
Wow.
be sensitive about it moving forward. So people do say no to things, but people are more open to it too. I also feel like when people first start getting their music license, it's a little scary because it's kind of like, oh my God, you've maybe the artist or the band feels kind of out of control or just kind of like, it can't, we try to give as much information as possible. Like, we always get the scene description. I always send the IMDb link. If there is for an ad, sometimes they'll send you a rough cut of the spot. If it's a brand I've never heard of, I'll Google it to see if there's any kind of something that we should be aware of.
Yeah.
In case you want to consider these things.
Right.
And you should.
And you should, and we never force anyone to do anything. If they want to say no to something, they can. But I feel like once people kind of get over the initial like, and realize that like 90% of syncs go completely unnoticed, it feels a little easier to when the next one happens.
How many NSYNC jokes do you hear on a day-to-day basis?
Almost none. But there was like
I've been thinking of one like for this whole time, and I've been trying to like square that.
You brought it up just in time.
Oh, there we
How
go.
about that?
Yeah.
Nothing? All right. That's fine.
So, okay. Sorry to derail you there. I just had to throw that in.
No. But yeah, I think that there's like an initial discomfort that kind of goes away after a while. But I try to be I am really sensitive to it with people when our young bands first start licensing. I'm like, let's hold hands and talk about it. How do you feel? Let's talk about our feelings.
Oh.
That's cool.
Yeah.
They're like, let's talk about money, dude.
Well, I don't want anyone to be traumatized.
Right.
I'm sure that is an interesting rub. You know, you're putting yourself, or the bands are putting themselves in a position where they may feel they're, you know, abandoning their own beliefs and standards.
Or their music is going to be used in a way that like makes whatever it's used, like The Graduate, Simon and Garfunkel. You can never think of like Mrs. Robinson without thinking of Dustin Hoffman.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? For better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So like sometimes like when you do a sync really well, whatever it's synced to becomes more important than the actual song.
Yeah, totally. And you're kind of working with just like a sliver of information too. So sometimes like the info you're given, you get your own like idea of what that might look like, and you're like, that sounds not cool. And then, you know, maybe you see it later and you're like, oh, actually this is very cool.
Yeah.
Or it is actually not cool, but it's also not offensive. You know, it's just not cool.
Yeah, like Broncho was in a car commercial many years ago, and like most people, I think it was an instrumental part of a song, you know, it wasn't even anything. I just knew the record really well, so I knew it when I heard it, and I think they probably made a pretty penny off of that. But if you're not already a Broncho fan, I really doubt you even knew or noticed.
I've never even heard of Broncho.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, give them a listen.
Okay.
Please.
Maybe.
Sorry, should I write this down?
Yeah. We have a lot of...
We got a lot of things for you to do during the snow day.
Sure. It's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, that goes back to the point of like, it's really impactful. Like I remember those things. They connect in my mind.
Yeah, and I think the money is also really helpful for the artist too, which I think that is the two most fun things of the job for me are seeing it on TV or wherever. I feel like I watch everything on TV now. Like, what am I not watching there? And I think just feeling like you help somebody make some money in this business that's like really, really, really hard to make money. ever harder every day that goes by. So that's cool.
Yeah, we need you.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Do you feel like if a band or an artist wanted to get some of that money, like, and they didn't have the representation of a major label, is it still possible for them to get noticed or make a connection that would lead to them getting some sort of placement, even if they were independent or on a smaller label that doesn't have that, like a U?
Well, I think that's where third party licensing companies are really great. There are so many of them, and they are easy to find online. A lot of them have great submission processes. I came here and I was like, I don't know how to talk anymore.
Put a mic in front. It gets hard, man.
It does, and it feels like it's like in my mouth. And so many of them have like forms where you can submit easily. I think that if you are independent and you want to seriously have your music considered for sync, the best place to start is by finding third-party representation, because those people have the relationships with the music supervisors already, and the music supervisors are already like in conversation with them about whatever. I think that if you don't have that, the best thing to do is to do your research about whatever it is you think, like what if say it's Yellowstone and you're like, I feel like my song makes the most sense for this. It just like totally hits the nail on the head. I think the thing that drives most music supervisors crazy, I think, is that people are constantly thinking of their objective instead of thinking about the supervisor's objective. So I think, doing your research, watching the show, listening to the songs, looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, does my song really make sense for this? Or do I just want it to make sense? And then if you still feel like it makes sense, I think that, finding the supervisor's contact and reaching out and writing like a thoughtful, meaningful email is the best way to go about it. I think that with everything, I think the most success you can have with this area is to just really remember that like you're there to like serve the needs of somebody else instead of have them serve your needs. Because your needs my needs at the label, they don't care what we're doing at ATO. They don't care what I was doing at Hypnosis. They're like, do you have the song that I need? And if the answer is yes, then it's on. And if it's no, then they'll come back when they need that song. Or when that song makes sense, then we can talk about it. But, you have to always be thinking about what they're working on and do you have what makes sense? And do you understand what you have too? Like, don't, if you've got samples in there, if it's a cover of a Neil Young song, think about that stuff too.
That's good advice.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and I would imagine that, like there's like the big whales, like the True Detectives and the Bank of America commercials and stuff like that. But a lot of it is probably smaller projects and stuff that you don't even think about, like content libraries and things like that. Like, talk about the small fish.
Oh man, I mean there are so many projects being made all the time. There's less now than there used to be, like post writer strike. And I think the strike, it wasn't the strike so much as it was like streaming on not being as lucrative and the cost of making things not balancing out to the, subscription fees. But, there's big fish for sure, but there's tons of little things that are being made all the time as well. There's another area of licensing that's called micro licensing. And I think there's companies like MusicBed and Marmoset that really specialize in licensing for people's wedding videos, licensing for independent films that have like really small budgets where, maybe they can't afford most things, but like it's a great foot in the door for smaller artists and kind of like marrying those two things together. There's companies that specifically specialize in those, and you can submit your music to those companies as well for consideration. And a lot of that is automated. Big supervisors use micro licensing sites sometimes when they are working with challenging budgets. Sometimes, like on a TV show, a big expensive song will like eat up a big portion of their budget, so they'll have to like fill in some holes with some smaller, more affordable things. And I think that there's a lot of space there too, obviously. And even in big shows, I've seen stuff where I'm like, oh wow, that was a really cool use of indie band in a big show.
So I have a question that goes back to your tape librarian phase. So like, so you were a librarian, and I would imagine that at ATO, like you probably heard more songs from the ATO catalog than anyone at ATO.
I'm listening to them every day.
So like, how do you catalog them for when a pitch comes? You're like, ooh, let me see if,
yeah,
what does Dave Matthews got on here?
Are you playlisting?
You know what I mean? Like,
what's your process?
Yeah. How are
right.
we like archiving this so that it's easy for you to pull something up.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm not fortunate enough to work on any of Dave's songs, but
Dang, dang, Dave.
but I've heard I've never met him either. I've heard he's very nice though.
He seems super nice. I actually met him in Westminster Abbey. My mom and I were walking, and he was playing the O2 Arena that night. And I was like, my mom loves Dave, and I was like, Dave, my mom loves you, and he was like, that's cool, man.
I love that.
Did you mention him just so you could tell that? Because I appreciate
No,
I like
didn't.
that story.
But it
I hope
was-
you keep it in.
But he was really nice. He was very nice to her, so it was cool.
Oh, I
Yeah.
love that.
Dave.
Yeah.
So, this is a big part of being a sync professional, which is organizing your catalog. And there's way back when I first started, we were all using iTunes, and then we were dumping them into WeTransfer zip files, which hope the file's not too big, hope your internet
I hate those things.
is feeling good that day. It was a trying time. And so we'd organize everything in iTunes and make playlists in iTunes and then do that.
Yeah.
Now there is software that will just basically act like that, except all of your stuff is on there. It's making the links for you.
What do you type in when someone's like, I need a motorcycle gang song?
That's gonna have to go into one of my tags. So we tag everything, motorcycle gang. So we tag everything in the metadata of the song, and so your song files back in iTunes. You sometimes you put things in and be like track 01. No, blank 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 blank.
Wow.
And then you'd have to type everything in. So we put all of in this software. It's called Disc. Disco's the one that most people use, and some people use it for other things beyond sync, like just storing your catalog. Other companies use it for whatever. I don't want to get in the weeds about it, but it's very important for music supervisors that you're sending them song files that have all of the metadata in it, meaning like your song title, your artist name, your album title, your contact information, how do we reach you, and then there's a section in it where you can tag creatively. So every song every new record that comes in, I throw it in Disco, I put all that stuff in, and then I sit down and I listen to it and I go, indie rock, male vocals, mid-tempo, sad, melancholy, relationships,
Yellowstone.
motorcycle, yeah,
Just
Yellowstone.
describing Yellowstone. right now.
Motorcycle
That's
gang, yeah, emotion, family,
Sad cowboys.
It is.
cowboys.
Canyons. Yeah.
I've never seen that show.
It's pretty brutal. I will say that. I tried watching it. It's bad.
I did not say that. I love it. I've never seen it, but I know I would like it.
You would love it. Yeah. If you like Dancing with Wolves,
I've never seen that.
me neither.
Actually, that's really good.
I've never seen it.
Oh,
I've
come
heard it's good
on.
too.
That one's good.
I feel
Okay, I'm gonna give it a shot.
That
I'm
one's
gonna-
like what 90s.
That was a low
Yeah.
blow. That was a low blow. I'm a Costner hater.
Which is fine.
I'm a Costner hater.
You know what I also have never seen is The Bodyguard,
Oh, me neither.
but it has one of my favorite soundtrack songs of
Yeah.
all time.
Yeah, right?
Whitney's cover of
oh my gosh, it's
I Will Always
amazing.
Love You.
My mom had that soundtrack. Speaking
Yeah.
of soundtracks, it's a dope soundtrack.
Powerful.
But you haven't seen the movie?
I haven't.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, me either. Now that I think about it.
I
Wow.
feel like I,
feel bad
don't
about
need
Dances with
to.
Wolves. I'm gonna take that back.
Don't you,
I wanna
don't you
watch
feel
that.
like The Bodyguard? Don't you feel like you already know what happens, right?
Yeah.
So like she's a singer.
She's Patrick Swayze's bodyguard.
No, Kevin Costner.
Oh, Kevin Costner's bodyguard.
No, he's her bodyguard.
Her voice and her love is his
Yeah.
emotional bodyguard.
Then they fall in love. Maybe he gets shot. I don't
Somebody
know.
surely does,
Ooh.
right?
I feel
Protecting her.
I would like
Yes.
to be on a game show where I try to say what I think movies I've never seen are about.
Yeah, that's how I want
Just
to.
based on the title.
I want to do that with the Bible because I've never read it, and I want to go through the books and just guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exodus. They're leaving.
I think this is okay. If I had to guess, just using context clues. Yeah, I would like to. I think that should be a game. I would like to play that.
There's a subreddit that's like describe plots of movies badly, and then people guess in the comments. I've not gotten a single one. I almost had to unsubscribe from that because it is bad for my ego.
Wow.
Yeah,
because I feel silly.
Well, speaking of subreddits, and this, is looking into the future a little bit, but given how personalized everything is there going to be a place in the world in the future where we are both watching Yellowstone, and I have a different soundtrack, and you have a different soundtrack, and different syncs?
Oh, I love that thought. I love that thought. I don't know, maybe.
We should try it.
Because if we all pulled up right now on Spotify, if we pulled up right now the radio for a song, the same song, we would get different.
Is that true?
Mixes.
Okay.
I know that to be true because I have my work Spotify, and I'll just be on someone else's Spotify. I don't have Spotify because I have Tidal.
Wow.
I know.
I love that.
Oh my God.
I love that.
I don't
to rebel.
Mean to brag, but the audio quality is just so much better. but really, if you pull up the same, it shows you things that you already have in your library. So it tries to customize, maybe in the same way that you're envisioning.
Yeah.
Paired with a movie or show.
Right.
I've never been able to get down with Spotify as a music discovery tool. It just my body just can't understand it. Much like previous jobs I've had where I've been like, oh, I don't think I'm good at this. I just can't get into the algorithm. I just can't understand how to discover music on it.
It's gotten worse.
I've heard that it has been getting worse. I've heard that it's experiencing the enshittification.
Well, just like every other AI thing that we're seeing, it starts to get too tight in its data.
Yeah.
So then it just starts pulling from its own things instead of I think the algorithm used to say, oh, you like this song, I'm going to find somebody else who also likes that song and find one of the more obscure things that they like and connect you with that. But now it's more let's find the things that you already both have heard and liked and play you more of that. So it's not even helping you find new stuff anymore. It's just regurgitating what you already kind of like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Which is why your job is so important.
I mean, thanks.
But I feel that way. I mean, I find I'm Shazamming every day, all the time.
I Shazam a lot too. I do too. I'm yeah.
Do you think the fact that you listen to music for work, has it changed your relationship with enjoying music?
Yeah. Because the listening that you do all day for sync is so active, where you're sort of listening, you're like, oh, does the song do this? And are these lyrics in there? And they're looking for something for this scene. Does this make any sense? It's about a father and a son. And so you're listening to a song, you're like, oh, this is about falling in love with somebody romantically. You're like, maybe not. And so you're listening so actively all day long that it does get really tiring. And so usually when the day's over, I kind of don't want to listen to music, or I do kind of enjoy the radio where just somebody else is driving
the bus.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, play some things for me. You decide.
Right.
Radio's coming back. I'm really
I'm here for it.
I think Nashville has some great stations too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And great DJs that really care about it and want to help people find music that they'll like, not just show off the weird taste they have or like play whatever people already know, but like,
yeah, exactly. Although sometimes I'm here, show off your weird taste to me.
Yeah, but that was interesting though, going back to like the sync camp, because like the snobbery used to be from the artist side and now it's from the corporation side. Like, don't send me your fucking sync camp shit.
Yeah.
Ew, gross. Send me the real deal. Send me real songs.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. That's what they're saying to your face, but then behind the scenes they're like, I love it. It makes so much sense. It's exactly about the President's Day sale. It is what I want. They can't resist that.
I hope that like sync music or like the music from sync camps becomes like the religious music in hundreds of years from now. Like, you know, like now, like there's like a cult thing of like listening to like library music from like the 60s and all that's like coming back. But like, you know, maybe it is really good and we're just giving it short shrift because of the way it's created.
Or like the package that it's being sent to you and, you know, or it's sort of like, oh, well, it's this, so it must not be good. But yeah, you're right. Now we're these whole like 60s library records that people are like, I love it.
Yeah, like give me more of that like stuff that was created so that engineers didn't kill themselves. You know what I mean? It's just like, what is going on?
I'm always so curious about the psychology of like music to add like to buying, the action of like buying something. Like if a commercial has a Jack White song in it, like they paid God knows what for, you know, and they probably requested it or something. That sounds like a special request. Then does that actually lead to more sales than if they would have paid probably less or the same if they're being cool about it to a smaller artist? Like, do they really think, or does it like actually translate to sale, like more or less sales
of like cars?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you.
I think they need to study that.
Or what about sales of the record itself?
The sales of the record itself, it might help. I don't know that. You know, I feel like back in the day, having, you know, we can all think of like iconic commercials, like but the Apple iPod commercials where people are like, my mind is blown by this amazing music that's in there. Right. And now I feel like people aren't watching as much TV. Ads aren't really holding our attention in the same way that they used to. And when I talk to people at ad agencies, they're telling me they're making like less ads, like less traditional ads, and they're almost working in this weird like other space where it's kind of like it's a thing, it's a contest for social media, and like somewhere in whatever I'm hearing, which seems like it's everything but an ad, is an ad, and I'm like, where is it? Wow. And it almost will have nothing to do with music, and I think that push-pull, it's very interesting. It feels like people either want something huge, like an iconic song that everybody knows. Recognizable is a word that gets thrown around a lot. Or they're like, we have no money and we want whatever, just send me whatever I can afford. And so, you know, it's just very interesting to hear music be talked about by people that aren't music people in ways where, you know, and then, you know, you have the poor music supervisor who's sort of like, they're saying they want something recognizable, but, you know, what does that mean? What does that mean to people? Or there was somebody that was talking about like the client having an idea of what people in their 40s grew up listening to. So 40-year-old people, I'm in my 40s. And so like the client's idea was so much older than the reality of what people in their 40s grew up listening to. Wow. And sort of like trying to balance these concepts. You know, that's what the music supervisor is doing, but sort of even just thinking about what do people think that people in their 40s grew up listening to. It's very it's very, I don't know, I think I got off in the weeds there a little bit.
Yeah, I love the psychology of it all and like how it all works together and what we're really doing here. And
oh yeah, you know, you'll go crazy if you start trying to think about what non-music people think about music and then trying to like rationalize music.
It's odd to me how many there are.
There's a lot. The music supervisors have a really hard job because it's their job to do that. It's my job to be like, music supervision doesn't work the way that you think it does. It's not me convincing somebody to do something. They don't care what I think. Right. They're not sitting around being like, I don't know. It's either this or this. Let's get Mary Kate on the phone and ask her opinion. They're like,
yeah, they should do that.
They're like, get out of here.
Well, so like, I wonder how much of your role is like sales. You know what I mean? Because like when people hear the word pitch, and then you're building relationships and people learn to trust you. I mean, a lot of that is sales, right? Yeah,
it is. It's weird how I feel like all of the jobs that I had where I was like, I'm not good at this, or the dots aren't connecting for me in my brain. I kind of combined all of like those jobs into this other job where it's a little bit of PR, it's a little bit of sales, it's a little bit of, cataloging tapes. It's a little bit of all of these things all combined, but a lot of it is kind of sales, but you sort of lose control of what happens along the way. It's sort of like 25% of the way in, I can control it, then I lose control, and then at the end, if they come back and are like, we decided that we want to use this, or hi, I just decided myself I want to use this, then a little bit of control comes back, and then we can sort of negotiate, figure out what makes sense for everybody, come to a deal that everyone feels good about. Then hopefully they want to use it. Then we do a bunch of paperwork.
That's perfect.
and then I say, please pay us.
Well, should we round it out with our favorite question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think art and money go together?
I don't know if I have like a great answer to that. I feel like I want to say that I don't think that people are going to find out about art without money. I think it takes money to reach people, unfortunately. I think this idea that like all the gatekeepers are gone and anybody can get on TikTok and become a I think that's a lie.
Yeah, there's more
I think that's a straight up fucking lie. That people sell to people who don't, know any better. So in a sense, I think they go together because they need each other. Like art needs money. But I feel, at least in this place that we're in right now, I don't love that because I also want to have a romantic idea of like a great song will just go out there and, someone will get on TikTok and then everybody will blow it up or whatever. Or like it's on Spotify and it's just streaming its dick off and it's crazy. But
songs have dicks.
Yeah, they do. Can you believe that?
Wow.
I learned that. That's something I learned working in the music industry.
Yeah.
Some of them do have dicks. Do they go together? But I also feel like the best art is made when people aren't thinking about that. I think that the songs that truly command the most money, the ones that I see have the most value, are the ones that are not, and most beloved over time, feel like they're, I mean, it's so hard to talk because it's in such general terms. I feel like they're the ones that aren't coming from a place of like, I'm reverse engineering this to make the most money possible. And so in a way, it's like, do they go together? Maybe not, but it's kind of like a little bit of a symbiotic relationship. You got to have one. The money has to be there to support it. And
I think you just described NSYNC to us.
yeah, you need Lou Pearlman.
You need yeah.
Did you watch that Lou Pearlman documentary on Netflix?
No, but I feel like I would really enjoy it.
It is crazy. It's crazy. It's nothing like I thought it was going to be.
Wow, he's a good guy?
He No, he's even more terrible than you thought he was.
Yeah, of course.
You're kind of like, damn, this is so much deeper.
Wow.
I was on the edge of my seat.
Was that worth it?
That's amazing.
Yeah, I don't feel like I answered that question very well, but
did.
yeah.
It's a hard one to answer.
Well,
Yeah,
last
I don't want them to go together, but I kind of feel like they sort of, I don't know.
Well, so maybe a more optimistic question. Are you hopeful that a song can still, or will still be able to in the future, you know, get its dick out and fly around
Yeah.
and do its thing and, you know, have a life that is like far beyond what the songwriter even imagined?
Yes, I do. And I see that happen all the time. I see that, and it's one of my favorite things to see happen. And what's crazy about it is when you start digging into a lot of these songs that pop off or these artists that pop off, you know, it's almost never an overnight success. It's stuff that people work on for years and years and years and get told no over and over and over again. My partner is a musician, and I mean, I think part of the reason why I'm not an artist is that I'm not tough enough to handle the critiques and the no's and all of that stuff. But like when I look at, you know, Colors by Black Pumas, which is arguably one of the most successful sync songs in our history, you know, Eric Burton wrote that song 10 years before we released it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the stories of how songs find their way to people over the course of several years through ups and downs, and many people telling them that, oh, it's bad or it's not good or whatever. Yeah, I believe in that. I think that's the magic of it, really. It's just like watching that happen makes me feel so good. So it's possible for sure. Never stop, never give up.
Don't stop believing.
Don't stop believing.
That's a great way to end it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you. That was great.
That was super fun.
Oh, good. I'm glad it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know many people in online work.
Thanks for listening to Devalued. For more information about our podcast, please visit devalued.show.